Message from the Allied Milk Producers.
It's the voice of Indiana County, WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, and State Representative Jim Struzzi is in the studio with us this morning. Our conversation brought to you by Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. Good morning.
Good morning, Todd.
It's good to have you with us here today. Just a quiet time in Harrisburg right now, huh?
Well, yeah, we're gearing up for some fun next week.
Yeah, budget is in crunch time.
Yeah, we're going to get into the budget when we return to session next week. A lot of work to do, a lot of bills still to move this session. I think it's going to be an interesting discussion as we, try to create a balanced budget that addresses the needs of Pennsylvania.
We talked about budget last month, and of course, now those discussions will ramp up here in this month. Governor yesterday announcing that he would like to see $2,000 payments to every household in Pennsylvania for people making under $80,000 in that household. People say, you've got the money, why not spend it there? But of course, in Harrisburg, you've got all kinds of legislative ideas for what to do with that money. Is that a good idea?
Well, I'd heard the governor mention that some time ago, Todd, and I think you have to look at the fiscal impacts of that. What is that going to cost the state in the big picture? How much is that going to be total? And I don't think we have that number yet. Yes, we're doing better with our revenues are coming in higher than expected. We still have some of the money left over from the rescue plan. We still have to put more money in the rainy day fund. We are below the national average as far as our reserves, and we want to make sure that we continue to have money in reserves. But I get it. People are struggling right now. It's very difficult for families to make ends meet. I don't have to tell the listeners that inflation is very, very high, food is high, gas is high. All of us are struggling to make ends meet right now. But is a one-time check going to solve that problem, or should we be looking at long-term fixes, reducing taxes, reducing costs on families? Is there other better ways that we can help alleviate some of this stress on families right now? But I think we'll have an earnest discussion about that. If that is legitimately something that moves forward, I think we'll have to have a good discussion about that in Harrisburg when we return next week. But again, you don't want to spend everything you have in this budget and not have anything for future years, because if these trends continue, these revenues are not going to continue at the rate they are right now.
There are great warning signs out there for us to take a look at and say that, okay, those revenues can't continue to come in at the rate at which they are. The inflation that you mentioned is certainly a big part of that, but Reggie and its impact will be hitting people. And with everything costing more, and infrastructure needs in the state of Pennsylvania, this budget season is really going to be fascinating to watch unfold. The roadways and what's underneath the roadways, they all need attention right now.
Yeah, there are a lot of needs out there, a lot of people asking for additional funding in this year's budget. I can't tell you how many meetings I've had with different agencies coming in, different entities looking for boosts here and there, and in many cases, rightly so. We do have to increase some spending. I think the reimbursement rates for healthcare workers, for home healthcare workers, for nursing home workers, and some of those areas where we don't see enough people applying for the jobs, where the workforce needs are growing faster than our ability to service the people in these patients. We need to make sure that we are filling those workforce needs, and some of these things have to come from the state budget. But we have to get to a point where we are passing a balanced budget. I can't say that enough, because my fear is, everybody wants something this year, and we provide all those funds this year. Then what about next year? It has to be sustainable. And yeah, we're looking at good revenues right now. Yes, we're looking at some surplus from the federal funds that came in, but those aren't going to be there next year. And that's the concern I think that we have. We have to not just look at this year's budget, but look at next year and the year after to make sure that we're accounting for the sustainability of Pennsylvania as a whole.
I want to tie this together a little bit, if we can, and if it's appropriate. You have been recently pushing for more attention to mental health needs here in Pennsylvania. School shooting in Texas, another shooting yesterday here in the United States in a hospital setting in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Mental health is something that is affecting everybody, and we just don't have the structure, the resources applied to it right now to address every mental health need. What can Pennsylvania do and do right, and not just necessarily do quickly, but do right to address what is really a crisis right now?
Well, yeah, thank you, Todd, for bringing that up. It is seriously a crisis, not just for Pennsylvania, but for our entire country and our entire society. Last week, when we were in session, the House passed my bill, House Bill 1644, that would require the Department of Human Services to create a better process for dealing with mental health patients, specifically when they come into our emergency rooms, to work better with the counties to address those needs. And you're right, we do not have the resources or the capacity right now to deal with the mental health needs in our society. What are the root causes of this violence that's happening across the country? And I think in most cases, it's going to point to some sort of mental health need that wasn't addressed. So that's why I think it's so vitally important that we do provide adequate funding to address mental health needs in our emergency rooms, in our schools, in our society. And I think that's what the House Bill 1644 pushes the Department of Human Services to pay more attention to our mental health needs in our society, to provide more resources, to come up with better processes to help our counties, our medical providers to address these needs so that we can help people with their mental health needs before they get to that point where they feel like they need to act out violently or harm others or themselves. And right now, we're not doing that. We are failing miserably in those processes. And that's what I'm trying to do with House Bill 1644. And that all stemmed, if you recall, from a study that I commissioned back in 2019 that pulled together hospital administrators, emergency room doctors, medical providers, and they processed over a year a study that resulted in a 104-page report. And this bill, House Bill 1644, stemmed from the results of that report.
The interesting thing to me about it all is you see the balance in a society that can be affected by just one thing. Yes. One thing goes off kilter, everything is off kilter. You mentioned workforce a couple of moments ago.
Yes.
Getting people into mental health jobs, making those jobs attractive to people is a real problem right now. Who wants to get into that kind of a stressful environment? Same as police work,
Right.
That's a real problem right now.
Yeah, and that gets to the point that I mentioned earlier about the reimbursement rates for these positions. They're very low, and in many cases, some of these people in the medical fields are making less than you can make working at a convenience store or a fast food restaurant, and we need to fix that. These are essential positions that we need to make sure we have in place when people need the help that they need. And I think it's something that it's not going to go away. Obviously, on the I guess we're at the tail end of the pandemic right now, but the stresses on our lives right now are incredible on all aspects. You turn on the TV and you see these horrific acts of violence. That creates stress in our lives. You try to go to the grocery store and stretch your dollar as far as you can. That creates additional stress. You hear about all these things that are happening and it's not going to end anytime soon. That creates all these mental health stresses on people. And first of all, people need to be aware of that. Give themselves a break when they can. But we, as a government entity, as a society, as a legislature, as leaders, have to provide those resources we need when people need them.
Yeah, it does seem like there's a lack of leadership in some areas that is really affecting everything. And because you turn on the TV, we see reasonable people dealing with things reasonably.
Yes.
But in a lot of situations now, nobody wants to act rationally. Everybody wants to make their point and make it in such a way that it's actually going to harm other sides.
Right. And we need to prevent that from happening. We need to be out in front of it. And that's where I think we need to start giving people some hope for the future, talking about the good things that are happening out there, because all you hear about are the bad things on the news right now or on social media. And we need to start talking about the good that's happening, the good that people are doing to help others. We need to get back to more faith and more kindness to each other. And we really need to start doing that on a one-on-one basis, just walking down the street, smile a little bit more and try to be kind to others. I think Jimmy Stewart said it best, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You could take any quote you want.
Right.
And it would apply there. All right. So let's move on to other things here this morning with State Representative Jim Struzzi. Budget, of course, is going to take up a lot of your time. There will be other discussions on other bills before the House and the Senate next week as well and in the coming weeks. What are some of the things you're really looking forward to talking about, debating, and putting forward?
Well, next week, we're still going to be dealing with regular committee meetings, moving bills. I have a bill, I believe it's House Bill 2528, that will help some of our local businesses when it comes to the gas well plugging. We're going to be getting a lot of federal money that will be used to basically plug abandoned gas wells. And right now, the way the bidding process is scheduled for those contracts, you have to have a certain amount of employees, be a certain size business before you can bid on those contracts. And that basically excludes many of our smaller businesses here in Indiana County and across Western Pennsylvania. So my legislation will be up for a vote before the House Energy and Environmental Resources Committee, I believe, next Tuesday morning. But that will require the Department of Environmental Protection to change that bidding process to allow more Pennsylvania contractors to bid on that work.
Anything happening with Reggie right now?
Right now, Reggie is still in the courts. We're waiting to see what decisions are made there. Hopefully, we can continue to stretch that out. I mean, electric rates went up yesterday, and here we are continuing to push an additional burden on working families. And we've talked about this for the past 2.5 years, and the estimates are, and they're probably even higher now, that your electric rates because of Reggie will go up an additional 30%. And, we've spent a lot of this conversation already talking about the stresses on household incomes. And I just don't see how the administration continue to push that forward.
Education funding is always a big topic when you get to budget discussions. And higher education is one thing. We've talked a lot about IUP and the state system of higher education. Local education on the high school or the school district level, the public schools, that is also something that school districts are very much concerned about right now. The way they do business is really impacted and will be impacted by the decisions made in the next couple of weeks.
And very much so. And again, we have to provide the resources that our educators need to give our students the best opportunities in life. We are really fortunate here in Indiana County to have good school districts that work together, to work with the Aaron Intermediate Unit. And again, it gets to also, the mental health needs in our school districts. We need to provide more resources to provide those services within the schools themselves. But I think, again, it gets to a balance. What is the right number for education? Do we need to spend more on education, or do we need to change the way we're spending money on education? Do we get rid of some of these government mandates that force our school districts to spend more than they need to? We still need to address the charter school issues. But again, those discussions will occur as we get into the budget. I know that you will most likely see increases in some of these line items. Some of them will have to stay stagnant. But again, I think it gets to doing the right thing for now, that we need to provide the resources for our educators, for our healthcare providers, for law enforcement, for our communities to get back on their feet and thrive once again.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things about it is with education in the last couple of years, we've been talking about technology upgrades and how that will impact budgets. I think we're going to refocus now on school security.
Yes, more. Absolutely.
And we'll hear more about funding that is allocated for those specific purposes as well. Anything local you're doing before you get back to Harrisburg next week?
Well, I'm going to be in the Salzburg Canal Days Parade on Saturday, and I was really honored on Monday to be in the Blairsville Memorial Day Parade and offer the keynote speech for their Memorial Day celebration, or I guess recognition of our veterans and those who lost their lives. And I would like to say that to all law enforcement out there, this is National Law Enforcement Recognition Week. Thank you for your service to our communities. Thank you to all of our veterans and military families.
He's State Representative Jim Struzzi. Going to be kayaking down the Conemaugh anytime soon?
As a matter of fact, yes. The entire family is going to participate in the paddle and picnic that the Chamber's having.
Yeah.
Next Saturday, I believe that is.
Very good. Very good. That's always a great event.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
He's Representative Jim Struzzi. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me, Todd.
It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160.